A 60-day stand-down to help root out extremism, a review of forces overseas, and more details on what might be to come from the new VA secretary. Military Times' journalists and editors dig into the week's top stories on this week's Reporters Roundtable.
Welcome back to the Military Times Reporters Roundtable, where each week we bring you the biggest headlines in the military community. I'm Leo Shane, Capitol Hill Bureau Chief at Military Times. With me again this week is Howard Altman, our Managing Editor, Megan Myers, our Pentagon Bureau Chief, and Andrew Tillman, our Executive Editor. Thank all three of you for coming back again. Megan, I want to start with you because we just got some big news out of the Pentagon, a 60-day stand down to look at extremism in the ranks. Ordered by the new Secretary of Defense. What's going on here? Explain what's happening.
So this is a response a little bit to the Capitol riots on January 6th, but most of it is because of this ever-growing kind of pile of stories of service members or recent veterans who have gotten involved in extremist groups. So the 60-day stand down isn't really a 2-month stand down. It's sort of a 2-month period where commands can pick a day where they will shut down what they're doing and basically have conversations. It's up to commanders to figure out how they're going to facilitate this, but basically to talk about what they've seen, what they think some of the solutions are, and then to try to collect some data where they can about the instances of extremist activity or extremist rhetoric.
Howard, is this going to do anything?
There's a lot of skepticism in the ranks. People saying, hey, Top's going to call everybody into a conference room and yell at him for an hour. Everybody signs a sheet and gets sent up the chain with 100% participation. To the point where Pentagon spokesman John Kirby had addressed reporters earlier this month and talked about how the Secretary of Defense realizes that this is not a panacea. He said that he realizes that a one-day stand-down doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see just how far down they get and how much of this is just top-level lectures. Andrew, you and I have worked together on the Military Times poll over the last few years where we've asked about this issue of extremism and some of this white supremacist ideology in the ranks. I mean, what do you think they're going to find if they do start to really dig down into these units and ask folks what they're seeing?
Well, the results of our reader survey have been pretty consistent over the past several years. About 1 in 3 service members report seeing some signs of extremist behavior in the ranks. That's a voluntary survey. I'm not sure how scientific it is, but I think this is a concern for a lot of service members. And I think the question is, what will the Defense Department be looking for? How will they be defining this? Does someone have to be an office holder in the Proud Boys organization in order to raise a red flag, or can a nasty Facebook post from 6 months ago raise a red flag? I think that they're going to have a tough time defining this, and that'll be really the question as to how far-reaching the impact of this is.
I know lawmakers are watching this very closely too, so this really could define the early tenure of Secretary Austin at the Pentagon. Megan, this isn't the only issue that's going on down at the Pentagon here. Talk about some of the other things we've seen from the Biden administration already.
So right off the top, in the first few days of the Biden administration, the president overturned President Trump's ban on transgender troops serving in uniform. So that was one of the first things. And then from there, we've seen an end to the U.S.'s helping Saudi Arabia in Yemen and those airstrikes and that sort of like proxy war that we had been involved in. And we've also seen there's going to be a global force posture that's going to decide a review, basically, which is not unlike the one that was done under the Trump administration, kind of looking at where troops are around the world and where they need to be going forward.
Right, but the results of this global posture review might be very different than what we saw under the Trump administration, because as we saw, he was talking about moving folks out of Germany, moving folks out of the Pacific, possibly just because of some grudges or because of some things. So, Andrew, I know that's an issue you've watched, especially Eastern Europe, for years. What do we make of this review? I mean, do you think that we'll end up seeing some of the radical suggestions that we saw proposed under the Trump administration? Do you think they'll stay, or do you think maybe we'll see a calming of some of these opinions?
Yeah, I think that Trump's order to get so many troops out of Germany is something that was definitely not supported by the senior military leadership. The idea of moving the EUCOM headquarters to Belgium is not something they were really embracing. So I would expect some reversal or backpedaling on that under the Biden administration. But then again, under the Trump administration, they had talked a lot about moving some troops to Poland, which is a perfectly logical thing to do, and the Polish government's very supportive of. So we may see some of those discussions continue, and there may be some shifting from troops to Germany, from Germany over into Poland, nevertheless.
Well, with all that Pentagon news, I don't want to leave out the Department of Veterans Affairs, which also got a new secretary in the last few days. Howard, you and I have been tracking a lot about Dennis McDonough. He's the former White House Chief of Staff. Talk a little bit about his background and what he brings to the department.
Well, he was Chief of Staff for President Obama during that administration. He becomes only the second VA secretary not to have prior military experience. The former one was David Shulkin. Whether that becomes an issue remains to be seen, because it's a large, massive organization. You have to deal with healthcare veterans as well as their benefits. Under Obama, McDonough had some experience dealing with the aftermath of the 2014 wait time scandal, so he is aware of the bureaucratic challenges. As you well know, this is an organization, it's the $243 billion a year budget, larger than any single service. So well the challenges that presents.
Yeah, I found it interesting in what McDonough said so far that he doesn't seem focused on just that interagency cooperation, maybe some of the more boring bureaucratic stuff, but he's really been emphasizing the issues of diversity, the issues of helping more women veterans, that kind of outreach. McDonough said that he's still going to stay focused on the suicide issue, focused on the homeless issue. Plenty of news to follow in VA. So look, we'll be tracking those stories at VA. We'll be tracking the stories down at the Pentagon. Stay tuned to militarytimes.com, and we'll see you next week.